When it comes to the Epstein files, I believe there's one critical question most people are failing to ask themselves, because everyone out there is talking about who did what and what exactly happened and who's guilty and they did this and they did that and yada yada yada, which for sure is interesting. Although many of us, we knew most of these things from years ago. I think what's interesting about the current situation is that now normies / NPCs, for lack of a better word, they know about it, so it's not a conspiracy theory anymore, and it's interesting to see their reactions to it. But regardless, the real question here, and this is the point of the video, the important question to ask here is, what can we do about it? But actually, not we, but you, because there's no we. So what can you, as an individual, you who are watching this video, what can you do about it? The danger here is thinking what most people are thinking, which is that we need to replace them with something better. We need to fix the system. We need to clean it up, right? We need to drain the swamp, right? Sounds familiar? But that is like saying, my poison has expired. Let me replace it with new poison. What we have right here, what is happening right now, not just with the Epstein files, but a lot of other things in the world, they're all the perfect storm to implement a new system that is much worse. It could be a way to justify ourselves into a new world order, maybe some AI government type of thing. And this whole thing with the files and all this other stuff that's happening right now could be presented and could be turned into a narrative of humans are not reliable leaders, and to then present some AI one world government type of thing that on paper is gonna have like all the upside with none of the downsides, none of the problems that we've had for decades and maybe even centuries. And when this is implemented, at first it's gonna seem amazing because that's part of the trick. In fact, the Bible talks about this. Like, what happens when the Antichrist arrives? At first, things are going to be spectacular. They're going to be incredible for everybody. All the problems are gonna get solved. So when the AI government comes, all these problems that society has been facing for the last few decades and arguably centuries are going to get solved really quickly. Whether it's problems with drugs, with immigration, with the economy, with jobs, with the culture wars, literal wars, which, by the way, these problems are very easy to solve because all of these problems are manufactured. They're not real problems. Someone decided that we needed to have these problems. And as these problems get solved, people will be more accepting of this new system and it will take more and more control. But then eventually what will happen is that then there will be like a turn of events, a classic bait and switch, and we will see the ugly truth behind it all. And that's where things might get really ugly. So the solution is not to replace the system. The solution is not to solve the system. The solution is to dissolve the system. There's this thing that Charlie Munger used to say that in a way can be extrapolated to what we're talking about here. He used to say that you cannot polish a turd. And even if you do, it's still a turd. You can make it round and shiny and like paint it with gold, but it's still a turd. And the way in which this analogy fits here is that there are problems, situations, things that cannot truly be fixed. Like no matter how much you improve them, and you might improve them, but you will still have a problem because the problem is the thing itself. So the actual solution is not to improve it, but to get rid of it. Get rid of the turd, don't fix the turd. It's like a splinter stuck on your hand. You don't fix the splinter, you just pluck it out and get rid of it. Now, you might be wondering like, okay, Pao, but what does that mean? Like, you're saying to get rid of the system, what does that look like? That makes no sense. That would be absolute chaos. Like, are you suggesting that we go into anarchy? Look, I think there are two big lies, two big massive lies that everyone going through the human experience is faced with. The first lie, I'm not going to address in this video because it's not relevant to the topic that we're discussing. But the second lie is the belief in authority. The belief that it's reasonable, acceptable, and expected for something external to you to hold power over you, to make decisions for you, to control you, to tell you what to do. And in this case, in this context, the big lie is the belief in governments, in institutions, and in groups. One of the concepts I usually talk about in this channel, and if you're subscribed to me and you've seen many of my videos, you know what I'm about to say. One of the concepts I mention in almost all of my videos is this whole thing of be your own guru. And although I usually talk about it from the standpoint of self-improvement, like trusting yourself more, trusting your own intuition, of not taking advice from others so blindly. The thing is that it goes beyond that. In a way, what it means is to reclaim your inner and innate authority, your self-authority, your self-sovereignty, and to break the illusion that something out there is above you. But most people don't operate this way. Like almost nobody does. Because it is a lie It is an illusion that is so entrenched into our perception of reality that it is almost inconceivable to operate without it. It is almost impossible to even see it as a possibility because it is a perception of the world and reality that was taught to you even before you had consciousness. And if you truly analyze it, most of the problems we have in the world right now, if you go down to the core of it all, to the root cause, you will find that everything stems from this belief on authority. It is a very difficult analysis to do, but that's what you will find at the root of it all, whether it's problems about the economy or wars or society or whatever. Most problems stem out of this. Now, the obvious question, the million-dollar question is like, okay, Pau, but if we stop believing in authority and not just stop believing in it, but actually living in a world in which operates in that way, and every single individual is their own master, and there were no governments and no man-made laws, this would be absolute chaos. Like, who would build the roads? Who would maintain the hospitals? Who would take care of the sick people and the homeless? What about commerce? Like, what about money? How would that work? How could we exchange goods and services? And what about security? What about thieves and murderers? Who would defend us? What about the police? What about the firefighters? What about all that? The problem is that I cannot answer all of these questions because otherwise this would be a 6, 7, 8 hour long video, which I'm not gonna do. Because like any of these questions that I could answer, it would lead to another question and then another one and another one, and I'm not gonna do that. So instead, if what I'm saying so far resonates with you, or maybe not, but you're curious about it, or maybe you completely disagree and you want to debate, maybe you want to challenge it, instead of going to the comment sections and fighting there, which would be a complete waste of time because I rarely reply to comments. I think comments on YouTube are horrendous. It's probably a feature that I'm gonna disable very, very soon. But regardless, if this is a topic that you want to explore, I would highly, highly, highly recommend you to read this book right here, which I'm not gonna say out loud, but I would recommend you to read this book right here. I read it like 4 or 5 years ago. It had a massive impact on me, obviously, otherwise I would not be making this video. And if you read it, and maybe you agree with it, or maybe you've already read it, or maybe you're not gonna read it, but you kind of get where I'm coming from, and you kind of sense like what all of this is about. The next and maybe final question is, okay, how do we implement this? How do we do this? How do we turn this into a living reality? Well, there's a reason why at the beginning of the video, I said there's no we and there's only you. So I want to read to you one of my favorite quotes of all time. It is by Confucius, and it goes like this. The illustrious ancients, when they wished to make clear and to propagate the highest virtues in the world, put their states in proper order. Before putting their states in proper order, they regulated their families. But before regulating their families, they cultivated their own selves. Before cultivating their own selves, they perfected their souls. Before perfecting their souls, they tried to be sincere in their thoughts. But before trying to be sincere in their thoughts, they extended to the utmost their knowledge. Such investigation of knowledge lay in the investigation of things, and in seeing them as they really were. When things were thus investigated, knowledge became complete. When knowledge was complete, their thoughts became sincere. When their thoughts were sincere, their souls became perfect. When their souls were perfect, their own selves became cultivated. When their selves were cultivated, their families became regulated. When their families were regulated, their states came to be put into proper order. And when their states were in proper order, the whole world became peaceful and happy. What this means is that changing the world begins with changing yourself. The world can only be saved if you save yourself first. The only revolution that is needed is the revolution inside of you. If you want to take down a system, just take yourself out of it. Don't fight the whole system. Just fight your own personal relationship with that system. Stop participating in that system. Stop contributing to it. Stop fitting into it. I'm not going to explain what that means, but I'm sure you can figure that out. And then once you have done that, then maybe, just maybe, lead by example, lead by inspiration. Not because you're forcing anyone else to do something. Not because you're shaming people into doing this or doing that, which is the strategy that most people use nowadays. No, be the captain of your own life and let other people, maybe, potentially, be inspired by that and follow suit. It is a classic saying of put on your mask first and then put it on to others. So as I always say, be your own guru.